Joining us in the KTAR studios is U.S. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. We haven't talked face-to-face in quite a while, Senator. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me on. Morning.
You bet. Let's start where we always start, right? The border. Title 42, and it was something that not a lot of people expected. The administration says that border encounters actually dropped. Do you think that will continue, or like a local pastor whose church takes in migrants told ABC 15?
But right here in Arizona, it's not like that. Right here in Arizona, I think we're getting more.
Do you think there might be more migrants crossing?
I think it's hard to predict.
Yeah.
This is still unprecedented, the numbers.
Yeah.
Sure, they've come down, but the challenges that we're facing here is, it's been going on for decades. Numbers go up and down. I will say that the Border Patrol and the nonprofits at the border have done a remarkable job coordinating with the federal government to try to manage this operational challenge. I mean, this is a real challenge for them. We just recently got another $45 million to the border here to help this effort.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to continue to focus on it.
I just told Chuck Todd that it feels like the White House moved closer to your position, a moderate position on the border, rather than the other way around, and wondered whether that's the reason we haven't seen the border being overrun, is because the White House listened to you. So is there any chance that you can bring together the two parties and get legislation done that includes respect for our legacy of welcoming migrants and has a secure border?
You can't do this job without being an optimist. I mean, it's working in Congress is it's not the space program, right? It doesn't operate on a regular kind of timeline. I often think that if NASA, had the rules of the United States Senate, the rocket ship doesn't get off the launch pad. But working together is what I've done from the moment I got to the United States Senate, and there's a lot of stuff we can agree upon. This is one of these issues that's really hard to solve, but border security is so important to me. It's important to the state at the same time. We need to treat migrants humanely. Mm-hmm. Big priority of mine is to try to find a pathway for citizenship for dreamers. I mean, as American as my own two kids, and it's really frustrating to think that we've left them in limbo, for this period of time.
We are talking to U.S. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona here on Arizona's Morning News. Thank you for joining us live in studio this morning. Another story we've been talking about a lot this week is the debt ceiling. And do you think there's going to be a deal? I mean, we're $31.8 trillion in debt, and it could have a really big impact on Arizona if we default.
Oh, it would be devastating. I mean, it's catastrophic to the economy. We've got to find a way to get some compromise between essentially the House and the administration and not default. I mean, default should never be an option. The United States of America pays its bills. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's history has shown that. I think we're going to get there. This is risky. Every day that goes by, this gets more expensive for the American people. It would be devastating for families, for seniors, for veterans. I mean, think about this. Seniors may not get their Social Security checks if this was to happen. Disabled veterans, health care. I mean, and the plan that's been presented by the House is not an option either. Thousands of Border Patrol agents under that plan would need to be laid off. I mean, this doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So, if it's not the time now to deal with the federal debt, which is $31.8 trillion, and it's grown under both Democratic and Republican administrations. It definitely has.
Yeah, especially the last four.
Yeah. It grew at 40%, I want to say.
More than that.
Yeah, but it's either way. When do we deal with this?
Well, we could deal with it right now. I mean, we could talk about the budget.
Yeah.
We could talk about
where do we cut the budget?
Both sides of the balance sheet, spending and revenue.
Yeah.
And that's what the discussion is right now. And I am hopeful they'll come to a compromise. We'll get this voted on probably next week. But let me say again, defaulting on our debt, the United States of America not paying its bills. I mean, these are expenditures we've already had.
Right.
I mean, that would be devastating to the economy in Arizona, to families. It is not something we should ever consider.
All right. This question I'm actually going to let Jim Sharpe ask because
you don't want.
I don't want to ask.
Okay.
This
all right.
Of an astronaut.
All right. So it was a topic long before we even hit $1 trillion of debt. Should we be spending billions of dollars on space exploration? I know you were just added to the Astronaut Hall of Fame. I've followed your career. I love space exploration and all that. You were even part of this event recognizing the astronauts who were flying the Artemis 2, who'll be flying the Artemis 2 mission. Very cool. But what do you say to people who have been saying for decades now, we're spending too much on space exploration. We need to be focusing on what's going on here on Earth?
Well, you got to consider that on that spending, we get a big return on that investment. We get that money back into our economy. I mean, we lead the world in aerospace, in space exploration, in technology. That creates, I mean, that money isn't spent in space. It's spent here on Earth, and we grow industries. That creates hundreds of thousands of jobs, good paying jobs that you can actually raise a family on. So the money that we spend on our space program is something we get back orders of magnitude more.
We're being joined by U.S. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona this morning.
And we know you don't know the details. You were traveling when the White House announced its homeless initiative, with Phoenix being one of, 5, 6 cities on the federal government that they're focusing on. But what part does the federal government play? What role do they play in tackling homelessness?
Well, I think there's, and there always has been, ways to encourage investors to build affordable housing. I mean, there's 2 tax credits, and there's a 4%. I don't want to get too much into the details, but there's these tax credits that make it worthwhile for somebody, an investor, to go out there and build affordable housing. That program needs to be looked at. Within my office, we're taking a look at it to see what we can do with tax policy to encourage individuals out there that invest in affordable housing to expand that. Housing is just too expensive, and it's not only for the folks that result in wind up being homeless. It's just like families that are trying to raise children and the rent's too high, and the kid can't play soccer because of it. So we've got to continue to look for opportunities to invest in affordable housing.
Boy, but it's more than just a housing situation. I mean, there are people that are on the street for a million different reasons, addiction and mental health reasons, people that really aren't ready to move into a house, no matter how affordable it is.
I talked to the head of the administrator of HUD about this specifically. That's true. That's partly, the problem. But the other problem is there are a lot of folks that are homeless because they just can't afford a place to live.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's like the bottom line. And some of them, in some case, they lost a job, they got injured, and they wind up on the street. I've visited this place called Manor House a number of times.
Love Manor House.
Yeah, it's helps
Amazing
veterans
place.
get off the street. And you're just hearing these stories about, a guy who's fully employed, and then he gets injured, and then he winds up not being able to go to work anymore. And then he loses his apartment. He winds up on the street. I mean, it's those organizations like Manor House and others that are, helping veterans and homeless people get back on their feet. That's really important that we continue to do that.
Yeah, I tell you that the homeless veterans are the ones my heart really just cries for, especially homeless vets who are addicted, because I know addiction's a huge problem among combat veterans especially. We're talking with U.S. Senator Mark Kelly, a veteran himself, here on Arizona's Morning News.
And Senator, have you filled up your car lately here in Arizona?
Tucson's not as bad.
Tucson is not as bad. But
Yeah, the gasoline comes from different places. From Phoenix and Tucson. We often get it from Texas, and Phoenix gets it from California. Different refineries, different standards. So, we get a little break down in Tucson.
Yeah, but right now, Arizona, on average, is 90 cents higher than the national average. We're the highest price in America. Do you have any idea why this is, or what we can do?
I do. I mean, I do know why it is, and it has to do with where the fuel comes from. And what we can do is, we can do more oil and gas exploration in places where it makes sense. The Gulf of Mexico is pretty obvious. I've been a supporter of this. We have a much cleaner extraction process than other places in the world. So if you care about the environment, in a lot of cases, it makes sense to get the production here instead of buying it from some other country and shipping it across the planet.
Which wastes energy shipping it, right?
Yep. At the same time, we've got to tackle climate change. I mean, this is, it's already pretty damn hot here in Phoenix in the summer. And at the end of this century, it could be significantly hotter if we don't do this, and it affects drought. We're waiting for an announcement from Reclamation here. Hopefully we have this is something I've been working on. I was texting the Commissioner of Reclamation this morning about this, about the upper and lower basin coming to an agreement so we can, start to put the first things in place to try to solve the crisis on the Colorado River.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's significant. We got a good snowpack this year. Gives us a little bit of time. We shouldn't take advantage of the time. We need to solve this problem.
Boy, it seems like Arizona lately has become ground zero for a lot of the biggest issues facing the country right now.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the desert, not a lot of water or not enough.
And we live on the border. And
we live on the border.
Right.
But let me also say, I mean, if you're a business anywhere in this country, on this planet, Arizona is a great place to come. That's why, we've got growing industries here, like the semiconductor industry.
Mm-hmm.
That was my legislation, the CHIPS Act,
right,
to invest in this industry. We've got TSMC building fabs. We got Intel expanding. This is going to be tens of thousands of great paying jobs that you can raise a family on coming to Arizona. And because of that, more companies are going to come here. We can solve the water problem. We can grow the economy at the same time.
Have you been by the plant?
Yeah, I've been. Yeah, last month I was. I've been by recently to both TSMC and into Intel.
Wow, it's really growing.
Speaking of that plant, one of the things that people criticize about it is that they've actually applied for $15 billion in federal government money. How much is too much to fund that industry?
Well, the bill was not too much, and it's overall it's a $52 billion investment. Think about this for a second. With TSMC's second fab, their investment in the United States, $40 billion.
Right.
$40 billion. They may potentially build 4 more of those.
Wow.
It will be significantly higher. So we get a return on the money we spend. It grows the economy. It creates jobs. People pay taxes.
And you also believe this is a national security issue.
100%.
Explain that.
It's one of our biggest national security issues. We used to make 40% of the semiconductor chips on the planet. Now we make 12%. The chips that go in everything from this equipment here in this radio station to cell phones to weapon systems to airplanes mostly come from Taiwan. Taiwan is 100 miles from our major adversary, China.
Yeah.
If we lose access to semiconductor chips on the island of Taiwan, in 2 years we will lose 10% of our GDP. That's not acceptable.
Wow.
We have to be building this stuff here. It's in our national security best interest. It also helps lower costs for Americans, and it creates tens of thousands of jobs here in the state of Arizona. It's a win on at least 3 different levels.
Well, we know you got to get going, but thanks so much for coming in, U.S. Senator Mark Kelly. Congratulations on being inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. 2 years behind my brother. Everything else in life I have done first.
It's always a competition with you, too.
Is he actually the older one, or are you the older one?
I'm the older one.
Oh,
I was born first. I was in the Navy first.
Like
I landed on an aircraft carrier first.
Like that,
No, 6 minutes. I was an only child for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I often tell him it was the best 6 minutes of my life.
Oh,
no, I'm
man.
just he's my best friend.
Brutal.
We have a great relationship.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
But
you're your brother still. You got to give each other a bad
Right.
time, of course. But I have to just say, though, said this to Jayme a couple of weeks ago when this was all announced. I said, don't just astronauts in general just automatically get into the Human Hall of Fame?
You would think so.
well, that's what I said in my speech. I said everybody who straps himself to the top of a rocket,
It's crazy.
kind of deserves it. My colleagues, I could not have had my astronaut career without the help of all my crew members. Very talented. Made these missions successful.
All right. Well, thanks again. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona joining us here at the KTAR studios.